everybody. I'm so excited. I have Dom Rufran here. Coming from Colorado Springs, one of my favorite places, and a former football star at the University of Wyoming. Can't wait to get into your story. Here's what I want to point out about the man that you're about to hear from. His embodiment of how he leads in business today are the words grace, love, compassion, integrity, praise, and empathy. And with all due respect, I do think you forgot one, which is generosity. And that's how I met you and how I found you, because you started a podcast that we'll get into. But Dom, thank you. Thank you for being here. I'm so excited. Dom Rufran, everybody.
Yeah, no, thank you. And it's honestly an honor. The way that I look at life is you have a lost opportunity cost, obviously, of saying yes to certain things means you have to say no to other things. But when somebody reaches out and has a genuine heart, authentic, and has a heart to serve people, and that's their true intention, and you can see that, whether that's in person, whether that's through message, phone, DMs, I want to be able to help. And I could tell that you had such a sincere, genuine, authentic heart in your message of, hey, like, I really want to help people. And I think that you could be a great voice for it. So when you asked it to me, like, I didn't even hesitate. It just seemed like it was a no-brainer. So thank you for having me.
You're the best. So this is so cool because why you're so special. What I love about you and what you do today is that you help people with, we'll call it financial fitness. And why I adore you for this is because you took pain into purpose. You are very vulnerable at speaking about your humble beginnings, we'll say, growing up. And then again, it's the generous spirit, because I met you with a podcast that you started in 2020 when everybody arguably was freaking out. You said, I'm going to give. And that to me is so beautiful and such a testament to who you are. And then on top of it, I see you doing podcasts and interviews and giving value in every single thing that you do. So you ooze generosity. And we'll go into what you do for volunteer work. But tell me about coming from Colorado Springs, growing up with humble beginnings. How much did you think football was a way out of that? Did you have any of that belief or pressure?
Yeah, it's a great question. My life from early as I can remember from 2 was around football, obsessed with football, watching Monday Night Football with my dad, Earl Davis, saying that's where I'm going to be, doing push-ups, playing catch, all the way to being in preschool at 3 and 4, like bringing my football to class. And my teacher said, hey, you need to take a nap. And I say, no, like, I want to go play football. They're like, well, like bribe me. He's like, well, if you want to go play, you got to take a nap. And so I'd pretend like I was sleeping just so I could go play. As I got older, I had grandparents and teachers and other people tell me, like, you know what do you want to be when you get older? And I'd always say, like, I want to play in the NFL. And that's my dream. I want to play football. And they said, well, it's realistic. And I always had the headspace of like, that is realistic. And I had a little bit of arrogance to it too. Like, on my MySpace, I'd be like, ball is life. And so like, I just didn't have any wisdom at that stage of life, obviously, to really know what else was life except for football. And so I slept with it at night, even when I was a kid growing up all the way through high school. Like, I studied it, all my video games were around it. Like, it didn't really matter. Like, football was my obsessive passion. And growing up, I grew up in a trailer park, food stamps, welfare, family always in debt, issues from parents arguing, fighting. I always remember it still, being able to only pick a certain cheese or a certain milk just because, that's what welfare covered, or we'd go wait in line at places that give food for people that need it. And you just always remember those moments that kind of stick with you. And when you're a kid, you don't really realize what you're going through sometimes. You just kind of accept it. It's just like, this is normality. And then as you get a little bit older, you start to think back of like, man, like, I really had a life in poverty relative for the United States. And I say United States because even then, like, I've been to Haiti a couple times and I've seen what real third world poverty looks like. And we have more wealth even on our lowest income levels than, some of the greatest wealth there. And for me, I just always knew that there was more to our circumstances as well, of like trailer park, kid with not a whole lot, never giving things except typical like Christmas, holidays, some of that stuff. And I was always like, well, I don't want my parents to be in this situation their entire life. I don't want to be in the situation. And so my out was football. And it was my obsession. I said, one day I'm going to play in the NFL, give my family what they want, make the life that I want for myself. And, selfishly, that's what it was. And so, yeah, small. I mean, Colorado Springs isn't that small of a town, but I'll say small town city boy from Colorado Springs, obsessive football to my way out was football.
Did you have any pressure from your family, or was that all kind of self-inflicted?
Yeah.
And I don't want to say inflicted because I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you feel pressure?
Yeah, it's a great question. And my dad was actually amazing. He pushed me in football and he encouraged it and helped me train and was there every step of the way, came to every game. And you would think that he was pressuring, but he always said you could do whatever you want to do in life. You could be whatever you want to be. You just got to work hard. Ironically, just football was the thing that I loved and wanted to always do. And nobody would outwork me, at least in my head at that time. And so football, there was no pressure. It was actually more pressure to not do it than pressure to do it. In my mind, nothing was going to stop me.
That's interesting. And I love how you said I was obsessed. And I think when we reach the highest heights and we dance with human potential, there must be a level of obsession because otherwise it's distraction. Right? I mean, in some degree, it has to be laser focus. Otherwise, we can get pulled a million different ways. So you say obsession, I say that's normal, right? But I love how you declared it because that level of belief in yourself. And you said, I was arrogant. Again, or was it self-belief? And you had to believe in yourself to get to that level, which was a high level. I mean, you were playing at a high level and going to a higher level. So I don't know. Maybe that's the mama bear in me. I'm like, yeah, that's normal. That's what you need.
No, you're 100% correct. And I think if you look at any person on this planet that has ever achieved anything of significant greatness, and I will say significant greatness based off of earthly and human standards, not based off of anything else from soul or emotional, mental, just surely of what you would define success of the sport or the activity or business, etc. They started young. And they became obsessed to the point where they probably ruined other relationships and other things in their life took a backseat pretty drastically. And you almost have to because it takes so much time, energy, obsession, belief, thought process to go around it. And so at the time, I didn't really know that's what was going on of like an obsession. You're just a kid, just like knowing that this is what I want to do and I'll do everything that it'll take. But it's cool as you get older and you can reflect and you have a little bit more wisdom of like, oh, that was a season in my life of what obsession really looked like, right? And now can I take that same obsession and apply it to today's life, but do it in a way that still has certain boundaries to where I don't want to ruin the relationships that I have with coworkers by, doing things unethically or ruin relationships with my family or, factor losing my soul for whatever it is just to be the greatest. And so now, trying to find the balance between the two, because I've just seen it so often where even Olympic gold medalists, where they devote their entire life to one thing, they become obsessed, they get to the peak, they essentially accomplish it, and then they become depressed. And that's essentially what ended up happening to me because my identity, as other athletes' identities, get wrapped into this one thing and they become truly embodied by it. And then when that one thing is no longer there, they're like, wow, like, what's the meaning of life? Like, why am I here? Like, what is the purpose of this now that I've no longer have this thing that I was chasing my whole life?
That's the question that comes up, right? Is, well, who am I? If I'm not this and everybody identifies me as this and I myself identify because it's all I focused on, then who else am I and what am I? And yeah, I mean, it does get existential, right? Like, what's my purpose here in life? And I just say, if God said, Dom, you're only good at one thing and you're going to tap out at this age, there's no way that would ever happen, right? And in that time, just like you referenced Steve Jobs earlier when we were just chatting, and I love Steve Jobs, and one of the favorite quotes is, you can't connect the dots looking forward, right? You can only connect them looking back. And so that wisdom, when you're in it though, when I speak with athletes and they are having an identity crisis, the level of awareness isn't there. They just have a lot of heavy feelings. But the awareness, I don't think, is something that you're like, oh yeah. Even if I experienced depression in the past, I wasn't like, oh, I'm depressed. It was after I got out of it that I was like, oh, I think I was depressed. Like, I remember one time in Kentucky, I woke up one day and I was like, I feel better. And I was like, nothing's really changed, but I feel better. And so, right, I was like connecting the dots of like, okay, I think I was depressed. So let's say that you're in that obsessed mode. Honestly, your opinion, do you think anybody could have broken that? Like, somebody have said, hey, Dom, like maybe you should think about some other things. I mean, had anybody said anything like that to you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think there's any words that anybody could ever say to an obsessed person to allow them to quit the thing.
Right.
But what I will say is there are life circumstances that will change a person's obsession to change courses and change paths. So I even had an example of this where I did network marketing. It was a company called World Ventures where we did travel packages. And there was about a year where I became obsessed. And it was really obsessive to almost the point where it was overtaking my obsession of football. And that's where like my personal development and business and thought process around that like started. And what ended up happening was I started exiling a lot of my friends. And if you weren't part of the MLM, then you weren't friends. The girl I was dating at the time ended up leaving me as well. And it shattered my heart. It broke my heart at the moment. You know, God works in the ways that he's designed us to for all the good of his glory. And at that point in time, I said, I'm no longer doing this anymore. I'm no longer chasing this passion or obsession of creating a multi-million-dollar network marketing company. And I stopped. And I know that a lot of people, their life will change if their circumstances became so shaking, so much of an earthquake that their whole world gets shocked that they will change. You know, not to go too off topic, but you know, there's the story of the guy that came over to the rancher's house and pulled up, and the dog is, you know, just howling. He's sitting on the porch just howling. You know, he's talking to the guy, you know, the farmer, and the guy's like, "Hey, like your dog, why's your dog howling?" He's like, "Oh, you know, he's just sitting on a nail." And the guy's like, "Well, why doesn't he just get up?" He's like, "Well, I reckon it just doesn't hurt him bad enough yet." So it's just one of those things where, you know, until the pain hurts bad enough, a lot of the times people won't change, and that's just natural human nature. And so that was a complete side tangent from, you know,
No.
the obsession conversation and how does somebody get out of obsession? I don't think people will get out of obsession when they're obsessed with a thing until something so significant happens to rock their world that they realize that the path they're down is more detrimental than helpful.
How long did you play football from to build this? I know you said you carried a football with you and slept with it. What age did you start playing? And then tell us about where you kind of ended your career.
Yeah, I can only think back to as early as I have memory, and that's when football was there. Like it's always been part of me for as long as I can remember. And so I always say the age of 2, I was watching football, my dad doing push-ups, but like I don't know if it's really that
Wait,
young. Like,
who's your team?
well, I grew up in Colorado, so the Broncos growing up were my favorite team.
Love it.
But now I don't have a favorite team anymore. Now that I went through what I went through, I now just root for teams and because of players that I like know that are in the league still or that are friends. And so I root for, you know, the Bills now just due to Josh Allen, him being a friend and, you know, me going to the same school with them and stuff like that at this point.
He seems like a genuinely nice guy.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy. He is genuinely nice.
I'm
And
always
so
rooting for nice guys. Like it's awesome you're good, but like it's so much easier to cheer for somebody nice.
I agree. And that's another thing is like, you know, when you look at athletes and they have this certain demeanor to them that's like they think it's confidence, but it's really cocky. It's like when you open up the book of Proverbs, the Proverbs talks about the humble guy people like and the arrogant guy people don't like. And it's like, well, I guess if you don't care if people like you or not, then, you know, be cocky and arrogant. And if you want people to like you like have humility and people would be more receptive. And I think that when you've been given a platform like playing in the NFL, that's the highest platform in the world where people obsess over you. It's almost your duty. And again, I don't want to say shoulds or you have to because you could do whatever you want with your life. Given the gifts that you were given, because genetically, like I look back, I took a DNA test once upon a time and it said I had an Olympic sprinter gene. There's no world where I would have even had an opportunity to play at the highest level if I didn't have that gene. So who am I to say that I am so amazing by my own merit when naturally I was given that gift? And then what ends up happening as a kid, I realized that I'm kind of good at the sport and the confidence starts to build that I'm like better than kids my age. And like, because of that, I want to push more and I want to push harder and I just want to keep doing more. And it's just that compounding effect versus like, if you start off and you're like 5 and you're like, oh, I'm really not that good, you're probably just going to quit. Right. And so it's the same, it's that book where it talks about 10,000 hours. I'm forgetting about the topic at it. And it talks about the hockey players. It talks about like Bill Gates, how he just happened to be at the right university at the right time because
It's
he was at the
outliers.
yes, outliers, exactly. Yep. happened to be at the right place, right time, because, you know, the University of Michigan, they had the computers, and kids based off of their date of birth and their age, like they just happen to be like a little bit older playing. So they get like more confidence and more time to be able to play. So they just do better. There's a little bit of luck to it at the end of the day. So like, I would never be so arrogant enough to think that like it was all in my merit. So when people are like, oh, like it's all on me, I'm like, yeah, like you worked hard. I understand that. But at the same time, like, you know, there's got to be a lot of humility to it, that you've been given a gift by God, the one who created you, or the timing to put you in this right seat at the right time. And so I try to look back at that just always, even in my current life and the past life. And, you know, so, you know, ironically too, when I was when I was 5, I remember the Broncos playing the Atlanta Falcons. And I went home screaming like, Broncos rock, Falcons suck. And that was just like one of the chants that I did, because that was when they played each other in the Super Bowl. And
I
ironically,
know
like,
the end of this story, so that's why
yeah,
I'm giggling.
yeah. And, you know, it's funny how God works a lot of times, because ironically, like that was the team that I got an opportunity to play in the NFL for.
Right.
And it's the same thing happened to me in high school too, where there was a girl, she got a Division I scholarship to play basketball at the University of Wyoming. And I looked at her, I was like, well, University of Wyoming? I was like, that is low level. I was like, I will not be ever playing there. And sure enough, like I get a scholarship and I go there. I'm like, God humbles us in such unique ways. And you look back and reflect, and it's like all the dots, you don't get put back together, like you said, and you, by looking back, and you just see the lessons that you learn. And
I
it
also
allows,
hear you're a master manifester, right? Because the universe isn't like, oh, Wyoming. God was like, oh, Wyoming? He said it. So here we go. You know what I mean? You're like, Atlanta sucks. They're like, we don't acknowledge negatives, but thanks for playing. So yeah, you can go try out for Atlanta.
yeah, you manifest the negative as well, but, you know, that you think in
Everything.
the moment, right, that it could be. And
Yes.
I,
Yes.
you know, I'm not a huge manifestation person anymore. I think once upon a time, especially when I was doing like the MLM thing, like I always truly was like, hey, it starts with the mind, belief. And I do believe that still, like every action starts with a belief and a thought.
Yes. It's just
But
neuroscience. That's
yeah,
not even,
exactly. 100%.
woo-woo stuff.
100%. But I'm more along the lines of like action over everything, because you can believe all you want, but without action, you know, you won't get to where you want. But all the action in the world, even if you don't believe, you could still get there. So, you know, I try to put more emphasis on that, because I've seen way too many people that put all this time into like a morning routine and trying to manifest and think, and then they never take any action. And it's like, well, your life never changes. Why? It was like, well, maybe you believe, but like you've never done anything different.
That's a big part of it too, is we ask for things and then don't do our part.
I think it's hard to manifest beforehand, personally. I think that the small actions and seeing progress actually create the manifestations, because now you believe that it's actually possible through actually doing and confidence. And so,
And timing. So
yeah,
my measure has lately been 5 years. What I speak in now is about 5 years away. It's been tracking. I'm
yeah,
old enough. I'm older than you. So I now have some
some
data
data.
right behind my own world. So no, the instant manifestations is like, okay, but if it's bigger stuff and maybe there's some belief things that need to be cleaned up, and
Yeah.
then God will only give you what you're ready for too. So there's that.
Yeah. Well, the other hard part about it is you can think 5 years out, 10 years out, and manifest it and take actions, and sometimes they still don't happen. You know,
Yeah.
I know if I look back 5 years from now, I wouldn't have thought I'm where I'm at today.
Mm.
I actually thought I've been probably farther along in some areas, right? Or I'm actually farther today now in certain areas, like maybe mindset or wisdom, relative to where I was that I never thought I would be at. And so life always changes, and sometimes the circumstances and things that happen change those manifestations or your daily actions.
Let's pretend that there is another athlete listening here that grew up in poverty, never had exposure to wealth mindset. What are books? Because to me, Think and Grow Rich, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
but like, what are like resource books that if they want to start to get their finances together or just even learn about it? Give me the books.
So it's funny that you asked this question, because I actually am a huge believer that everything is derived of the Bible. They'll say the same thing. And so over time, all we have done is taken the Bible and taking its parables and stories and then made them into books. And then people have expanded on those books and on those books and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I would say the Bible if I had to pick a singular book that's like
Amazing.
got the most dynamite in it to help you change your mindset, your action. Because realistically, if you follow the principles in there, your life will change. Like it just will, regardless if you believe in God or not. Like following the principles of the Bible, your life will drastically change. You'll eliminate the bad, you'll focus on the good, you'll do the actions that matter, and you'll compound your efforts that will create positive efforts in your life.
I want to know how much faith played a part in different pieces or if it did at all. So what happened in college? So you said Wyoming.
Yeah, so I actually had a very humble beginnings of most of even high school and also to college, to thinking that I was the best and amazing, to then getting there and realizing like I wasn't as good as I was. But luckily for me, like I never said like, okay, like I'm not as good as other people and then just accepted it. Like I just started working harder. And so freshman year in college, I got on campus without a faith background of like believing in Christ. And that was one of the toughest years of my entire life, if I reflect from how I felt. And not necessarily like I really was going through hard times, because, you know, maybe I wasn't, maybe I was like, but that's how I felt. So I was depressed. I was suicidal. Being a 18-year-old kid, I was 17 when I got on campus, away from home, cold environment, you know, super small town, weight of the world. It was hard. And I still remember one time riding my bike in the snow, and it was 5 a.m. and I took a turn and I just fell and slipped on the snow on my bike. This little yellow bike that you rent for like, you know, $20 to be for the entire year. And I just laid there and I'm like, what am I doing here? It's negative 20 degrees outside. It's 5 a.m. I'm laying in the snow. I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like, why am I here? And we just got up and just pedaled and went to practice and just kept doing your thing, right? And so
Those feelings were still there.
yeah, 100%, right? And that is something you can't teach anybody. And as a foundational piece of molding a human being, you can't become diamonds until you go through things like that.
So
I
what
ended
happened
up,
in Atlanta? For anybody that doesn't know.
yeah, so 2014 was my last year at the University of Wyoming. And
You were a senior?
I was a senior. And my junior year, so the year before, 2013, was the year that I like gave my entire being to God. And I think that um, he gave me lots of blessings that year. And that was a year that I am forever grateful, that I look back and reflect on, of like being obedient, being a servant, giving your life to him. Like he truly will give you blessings for his glory. My senior year, I don't feel like my life was as devoted to him as I would have liked to be, for a multitude of reasons. And the season that I had was beyond subpar. We had a coaching change. The coach that I had from my position coach, he was, better word, he was a jerk. And you know, I've had the most derogatory things ever said to me my entire life by him, and put me in a place of just like feeling like the bottom of the scum of the earth. And so like now when somebody says something to me now, or, you know, like you can't affect me. Like I've been through way more hard things and heard way worse things than anything you've ever said. And so like I'm grateful for it. And I think that what we fail to do is sit back and we fail to reflect on what did we learn. And I realized like I did learn discipline. I did go through a lot of hard things. I did learn leadership. I learned a lot of things of what I didn't do that I wish I would have done. Been more disciplined around certain areas, asked for advice, got more mentorship, actually lead what leadership is supposed to look like. Like I thought I was leading in a specific way once upon a time. Like I was like, oh, I'm an amazing leader. Like that was always like my I'm an amazing leader thing as I was playing football. And then I reflect back and I was like, man, I was a terrible leader. It was because I didn't know what leadership was really supposed to look like.
If we don't see it, how can we be it?
Amen. Amen. And the other thing is too, is I did have a coach that was an example, and I didn't even realize that that's what he was being.
Okay, so you said that you dedicated your life in your junior year, and then senior year, you still had a relationship and just not as devout. I'm not sure how you would say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then
I'd
what
say my
happened in your
focus.
senior year?
Yeah, I'd say my focus was off for sure. And I let the world kind of distract me in a way that I wasn't the most proud of, or whether even the game of football just became less fun because I was so focused on like the output that I was trying to chase of the NFL. Like my junior year, I was so free flowing. I was just like, God, I'm playing this game for you. And now all of a sudden, like my senior year, I get this notoriety from my junior year of like Blitnikoff Award, you know, potential, and top 10 receiver draft, and, you know, all these talks about going to like the Pro Bowl or Senior Bowl and Combine and all these things. And then we get to the year and I put these high expectations on myself and I just focus on that. And I stop focusing on like what matters. It was like, hey, like, I used to play this game because I enjoyed it and it was fun. And then I played it to honor God, and like, and now I'm playing it just like playing the NFL again. So yeah, I had all these stats, statistics. I was crushing it my junior year. And that was a year that I went to Haiti. I spoke around the country, FCA, gave my testimony, was super locked in. And then my senior year, all that stuff happened. And I had like worse stats than I even had my freshman year, which is crazy. It's absolutely crazy to think that that was even possible, because playing the game when you're decent, and I would like to think that I was more than decent, you just naturally get opportunities that present itself to where you get more stats than you would have, 4 years ago.
Sure.
And it just didn't happen. So I was just even lucky and blessed enough that my junior year statistics and tape and all things carried over to give me an opportunity to even play at the next level. So I get an offer, drafted free agent to go play with the Falcons. I go to camp. Long story short, I get hurt, I pull my hamstring, and I essentially get cut. And at that point, I just was like, you know what? I think I'm playing this game now, and I no longer really love this game. But I know that I'm still good enough. Like that was the problem, is I knew I was better than people that were there, and also better than people on other teams. Like I could see the film, I could see team. Like I knew there were people that were better than me for sure, but like there was only like a 20% of receivers in the NFL that I thought were better than me at that time. The other 80%, just as good or worse. And I was like, I'm going to keep pursuing this. And then, opportunities got to present themselves. They didn't. And I played indoor football for a little bit. There was some other leagues like the XFL that presented itself that kind of fell through, that I just didn't pursue. And so then I was like, okay, well, let me get into rugby. I saw, a guy that was an track athlete. He played rugby and he's now an Olympian. I was like, oh, let me be an Olympian now. So I pursued that for, a couple of years, and I got an opportunity, went to camp with them. And after a while, I just was like, you know what? I think I'm going to hang up the cleats and I'm going to start my entrepreneurial career. And that's where, coming full circle, I decided to start it with door to door because of people like Robert Kiyosaki, Jamie Foxx, people that I really have read books are on to say like that's where you should start, because you get your teeth knocked in. Then sure enough, I did.
What advice would you leave as kind of a last invitation to athletes that may be struggling coming out of sports, so that they've identified with it and they're really having a hard time? Is there an invitation that you would extend? Advice? I don't love advice, because sometimes it won't land, but what's a seed you can plant?
In the season of hardship, it usually gets better, and at some point in time. And so if you're willing to consistently wait through the storm, it'll clear up at some point. That's the first thing to just try to keep in your forefront. Do your best to put your foundation and things that can't be stripped from you again as you get out of that season. So therefore you're better equipped going forth into the next phase for whatever that is. And then always take your experiences and the things that you went through in the past and compound them with your lessons to the next phase.
Healing takes place when we process what's happening and what we feel, acknowledging what we feel, putting a word to it, and feeling it, allowing it to be, because all feelings want is to be felt and acknowledged. And I mean it. I know you're such a blessing to so many people just by your beingness of who you are and your heart. I mean, it's showing. Your heart is showing.
Thank you. No, I really do appreciate it. Again, grateful. You could do anything you want with your life over the last hour. And between researching myself, asking me to come on, and then doing the interview itself, like probably a 2-hour process. And, it's 2 hours you're never going to get back. And so I'm just hopeful and grateful that the time we had together was worth it. And
the best.
Anybody that's listening got some value from it.
The best. Thank you so much, my friend.
Yeah, thank you.
Dom Rufran.